Hello StudyTube, it is so exciting to be on here and I cannot wait to get started on today's video. So my name is Jess, I'm 19 years old and I'm a campaigner and activist, talking all things girls' rights, mental health, young people and of course public sexual harassment. Today we're going to be talking all about public sexual harassment, or it's more commonly known as PSH. We're going to be talking about what it is, what to do and what you can do to help. But this video is definitely not about me. It's about two incredible women who experienced a movement that became a movement. So Maya and Gemma, over to you.
Hi, my name is Gemma Tutton, I'm 15 and I'm the co-founder of Our Streets Now, a campaign that aims to end public sexual harassment both through cultural and legislative change. So public sexual harassment, or as you might know it, street harassment, is basically unwanted sexual attention towards marginalised genders, mainly women, in public places by strangers. So public spaces could be in the streets, which is the most common form, but then you also have in gyms, in bars, in restaurants, or in parks. So we originally were inspired by other European countries such as France and Belgium and Portugal, who have all taken specific legislative action against this violence. And we really believe that there does need a specific part of the law that is aiming to tackle this violence. And then the second side is the cultural side, and this is also split up into two sections. The first being social media. Now on, for example, our Instagram, we have nearly 20,000 followers of victims and allies wanting to create change, where we post testimonies of real people telling us their stories and amazing artwork and articles and action points for people to help not only our fight but others. And then we have other campaigns branching out from Our Streets Now, getting involved in, for example, education, where we want to branch into the curriculum and help teach children about public sexual harassment. And then we want to work in sport, for example, working with women who experience PSH whilst exercising, but also working with men who play in environments that can often be toxic, such as football, telling them that this is not okay and that things need to change.
So, thank you so much. So what is public sexual harassment? Well, PSH simply means unwelcomed and unwanted attention from strangers. This could be unwanted sexual advances, intimidating behaviour, or any kind of unwanted attention from strangers in public spaces. All forms of PSH are coherently linked by power and by control. And the words power and control are really, really important here. And it is usually directed towards women and other oppressed groups of society. However, PSH can be experienced by anybody. So I volunteer on the Youth Advisory Panel at Plan International UK, which are a girls' rights-based charity. And they found not that long ago that 2 out of every 3 girls in the UK have been publicly sexually harassed. And 1/3 of girls have been publicly sexually harassed in their school uniform. So why are we talking about it? How does it impact us? If you're a woman watching this, chances are you've probably been sexually harassed. And probably not just one time. You may have your own story to tell. Our Streets Now receive hundreds and hundreds of stories and testimonies of public sexual harassment, often from young girls, and they can be quite violent stories. Because when we experience this kind of trauma, because it is a trauma, we stop doing what we love. We stop reaching our full potentials. And also, PSH has such a massive impact on our mental health. A charity called the Young Women's Trust found that girls and women who experience sexism are 5 times more likely to experience depression. Public sexual harassment is a form of objectification. From working with so many young girls, women, non-binary people, feeling they're described are feelings of fear, guilt, feeling dirty, feeling embarrassed, and changing their behaviours just to try and feel safe in public spaces. It's an experience where our identities, sexualities, and our bodies are treated by others as objects separate from ourselves. By making us self-conscious about our bodies and our safety, objectification can give us a real heightened sense of anxiety. Do you ever walk home with your keys in your hand, or cross the other side of the road when you see someone else coming, or pretend to be on a phone call? These are all measures that lots of people take just to try and feel safe when they're walking home at night or walking home on their own. It is never just a comment. Public sexual harassment is so much more than just a comment. It is a power move. PSH is so much more than just what happens in that singular moment. That moment stays with us for the rest of our lives and shapes how we continue to live our lives. We need to stop blaming girls for something that is not their fault. Unsurprisingly, there hasn't been much research into what makes it acceptable for some boys and men to harass women and girls. What little there is suggests that it comes down to those two really important words: power and control. Women and girls across the globe face this issue of public sexual harassment. Walking down the streets of Lima, Delhi, America, New Zealand, the problems may look different. Deep down, the cause is the same. The root cause is gender inequality and power. And it is so much more than just a minor inconvenience, and it is definitely not a compliment. And perhaps most importantly, it impacts how we live our lives. Girls stop going out on runs, stop doing what they love. They carry a financial burden of paying for a taxi home rather than walking, because walking is no longer deemed safe for some people. Stop their hobbies and they halt their dreams. What starts out as a comment can really quickly escalate. When do we as a society say no, enough is enough? Over the years, PSH, like lots of things, has changed. It's become a lot more violent as the online world and magazines now over-sexualise girls and women so much more. What really is scary is that there is no place to hide. Whether it be in the gym, on the way to school or class, PSH seems to be everywhere and there is simply no escape. It's also really important to understand that public sexual harassment is intersectional. So, well, Jess, what is intersectional? It's a way of thinking about power and privilege and oppression, taking into account a person's combination of social identities. This could be race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, religion, and more, rather than considering them separately. For example, for PSH, we know that people who are from a BAME background, who identify as LGBTQ+, are more likely to experience public sexual harassment and are more likely to experience more violent sexual harassment. And we as a society are not doing enough to prevent this. Short-term solutions. So what can you do if you are publicly sexually harassed? Firstly, know that it is never your fault and the onus should never be put on you. The problem and the blame lies with the harasser. That is the one most important thing to know. However, we still live in a world where, sadly, public sexual harassment still exists. So what can you do? The first thing is to trust your instincts. Listen to what your gut is telling you, and there is no right or perfect answer to this. Some people find documenting what happened can be useful. You could pull out a phone and start filming what's happening, or just write it down. Anything to try and reclaim your space, but remembering that your safety is the #1 priority. People around you for help, for example, going up to somebody else and having a conversation with them, explaining that someone is doing something to you or saying something to you, or you're scared of a situation. But I think the most important thing for you to know that it is not your job to stop people from sexually harassing you, and your safety and your well-being is completely most important. We as a society need to change, not women and girls themselves. The ask is very simple. Women and girls and every single person deserves to be safe. This isn't something we should even be fighting for, it should already be implemented and in place. I look back at younger Jess and wonder what her life would have been like if she hadn't experienced public sexual harassment. If she could walk down any street with that childlike boldness, who would that girl have been? Who would any of us have been? No matter your gender, your sexuality, your race, your ability or your appearance, feeling safe in public should be a right. So perhaps most importantly, what can you do to create a societal change? Well, our streets now have an amazing petition currently going, and we're currently at over 200,000 signatures. However, that also means we are so close to having 250,000 people wanting public sexual harassment to be against the law, because currently it is not. Secondly is you can follow and share our Streets Now Instagram. We have an amazing community of campaigners, writers, loads of different people. There is so much over there, and if you want to learn a bit more about public sexual harassment, that would be a fabulous place to start. And lastly, sharing this video could also help us and help you and help your friends and family so much, because some people just don't know what public sexual harassment is. And by sharing this video, you're educating people around it. If you've watched this video so far, I just wanted to say the absolute biggest thank you. Thank you so much for staying and learning about PSH, because this knowledge is so powerful. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, bye!